Gretchen Whitmer, Tim Walz, Gavin Newsom, Andrew Cuomo. These governors came to the national attention because of the response to COVID. And their response says everything about their leadership styles. Whitmer and Wolz, their lockdowns were complete and total. The state constitutions were suspended. Those who ignored their decrees were arrested. This was all done, we were told, to save lives. What happened was exactly the opposite. The lockdowns were supposed to save the lives of the elderly whom the virus most affected. We knew that then, and we know that now. Children were locked out of school, fell behind academically, and were crushed emotionally. Businesses were devastated. All this to protect grandma. And yet, in their great wisdom, Walz and Whitmer ordered that infected elderly people be herded into the same long-term care buildings as healthy seniors. They cited data and science that did not exist. Well, it does now. A recent study showed that such facilities had a 73% higher death rate. Minnesota suffered approximately 8,000 nursing home deaths, 52% of the state's total, the worst in the nation, except Michigan. We don't know the true total here in the Wolverine state because the Whitmer administration never bothered to count and never bothered to verify. Whitmer claims 7,000 such deaths, but Michigan has nearly double the population of Minnesota. So how do we have less when we were doing the same thing? The true deaths are probably nearer to 14,000 by my estimate, much worse than Cuomo's New York. We need and deserve an investigation, but our attorney general promises that we'll never get one. Politics were played with the lives of people. So this election is as much about the past as it is the future. We need leaders who understand their roles in a democratic republic.
Live from downtown Detroit, it's the No Bullshit News Hour with my main man, Charlie LeDuff, and Karen Dumas.
No bullshit!
It's just it, breaking news. No more bullshit. No more bullshit.
Hey, Karen.
Hey, Charlie.
I'm getting weirded out. You know, like I can't watch anything now. I can't go on Twitter, Mark. I can't do it. It's just weird. Like
what?
Like this presidential race. Like Kamala Harris is becoming Donald Trump. You know, you watch the commercial. Like, okay, we're gonna close this border on day one. The Republicans wouldn't let us close it. Or I'm gonna tackle inflation on a day one. You're the vice president now. I don't even know who's the president. Or she's now saying we're going to abolish tips for people in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
It's Donald Trump without answering any questions.
It's a very strange election cycle. Let me say it that way.
I mean, 6 months ago, we're talking, a couple of days ago, Democratic Party wanted to run Kamala Harris out on the rails. She's the worst vice president ever. And now, best thing since sliced bread, and can't answer a question.
That was a conversation over a year ago, confidentially circulating in D.C. It was. So, it's been a strange series of events.
So you don't win a vote? Like the Democrats refuse to hold a fair primary? RFK Jr., who quite possibly could have won it, is not allowed in it?
Well, and I think, and I can't remember the quote. It was a former president, right? And they were saying by the time you see everything in politics, it's already been decided. Like none of this is random, none of it is organic. It's all very deliberate. It's all very controlled. And this probably is the first time I'm really, and I say the second time that I'm really seeing it.
And if you really look at Trump doesn't have any economic plan. Like drill baby drill is not going to balance the budget, right?
We can't drill that much anyway.
Exactly. You'd have to have 200 Exxons and appropriate all of their money in order to cover the deficit. You know what I mean? Like cut tax for the rich. That's what got us in this shit.
But we're in an era where saying it makes it so.
Right.
Nobody questions. If you do question, then you're a critic. You're being negative. No, I think people are in a position in their lives where they truly wonder what is going to happen and how, because you've been promised so much for so long without any results. I think people justifiably have a right to question.
It's a fucking game show. Nobody's questioning. I mean, even, Bobby Kennedy sat in that chair, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm the first one to ask him, well, what's your economic policy? That's green is the deal. He said then what he's saying now, which is, I'm going to cut the military from $900 billion to $500 billion in 4 years. And we're running a $2 trillion deficit, dude. China's buzzing Taiwan. Iran... Israel's on high alert because Iran's going to strike, right?
Ukraine, Russia.
What happened to our service people that were hit by Iranian proxies in Iraq a week ago? We don't even know. Ukraine just invaded Russia, and we're cutting what? Nobody got shit. And it's killing me.
Nobody's connecting the dots. Nobody's asking. Nobody's doing their homework. Nobody is remembering past the last, soundbite for anybody.
And the media seems unaware. Look, the public's not going to hate you if you come up with facts. You come up with real questions. It's funny to listen to them say, "Oh, you get in there and ask the hard questions." No. You should know the answer to the hard question, right? So when they answer emptily, you're able to hit them with it's the follow-up that matters.
The media used to be like the teacher that was coming back into the room after going out and the class was acting out. When you knew the teacher was coming back in, you straightened up. You knew that you were going to be held accountable. But now the media is more like a dinner date. And it's not any sense of accountability, or fact checking or anything.
They're dumb. I'm sorry. Like
I think they're playing the game to stay in it. That's what I think is happening. I don't think they're dumb.
To keep the little audience they have left.
I think they're playing the game to stay in the game.
Look, here's what's going to happen for Harris. Okay, whatever, vote for her. I mean, I'm not going to yell at you. We're all Americans. But you can hide all you want, and then one interview or two debates doesn't let me know if you know the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy. That it's not good enough for me. But I do know that nothing good's going to happen. For instance, prices aren't going to fall, right? They're not going to go negative. They're not returning. The stock market is not going to explode. It can only implode. With everything going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine and Russia, oil prices can only go up. And if they go down, that's because the economy's collapsed. We're not using oil. So the economic malaise isn't going to cease. Ukraine won't cease. Right? The border won't close. You're still bringing in people on the app, and people won't go home. But there's a real threat of terror for those that you let in, which is, I didn't even plan that segue, but remember we did the story about the guy on the terror watch list that they caught at the border, and he was corpulent, and they were afraid he would get COVID, so they gave him and his family tickets to Dearborn. Well, there's a new report out now. We've picked up 400 people on the terror watch list on the southern border. 100 of them have been allowed to settle in the United States. And this report from the House Judiciary Committee quotes our work right here, quotes our work. Is this Venezuelan in Metro Detroit an asylum seeker or suspected terrorist? He was the first known instance of the federal government allowing people with high derogatory scoring to be allowed in here. So what was the point of us doing it? We tried to tell the audience, we tried to tell Congress, this shit's going in, and now 99 others?
That's where we are, Charlie.
So what's awaiting us?
Who knows? And I think that's the scary part about it. I don't think people know what to expect. And I think that in some instances, being made to feel good is being switched out for being better.
So we all know Trump very well. We don't know anything about Bobby Kennedy, and we're only now starting to learn something about Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate under Harris, and his time as the governor and congressman, and Sergeant Major of the Minnesota National Guard. Here's the deal. The guy did 20 years in the Minnesota National Guard. After 9/11, he re-upped for 6 years, not 4. And he didn't serve 24 years. He served 23 3/4. And that quarter year is important.
Why?
Because it is now fact that the sergeant major, or whatever his rank actually was, knew early in 2005 that Minnesota, his unit, his battalion was going to Iraq. Highest ranking enlisted man walks away because Obama and Rahm Emanuel and the Democratic National Committee find a new class of Democrat warriors, right? So he's intoxicated by Congress and he leaves his guys. Now, I'm not going to do thank you for your service, okay? He's a National Guardsman. This is 20 years, 25 days a year. You got the GI Bill, you got medical, you got insurance, you got a paycheck, you got retirement. I don't thank people in the armed forces for enlisting because it becomes a career. Mm-hmm. It becomes a direction in life. You get a paycheck.
A benefit.
You get a lot of benefits. I thank every single one of them when the candle lights off and it's time to do what you're trained for, which is war. Thank you for honoring your commitment to us, for honoring your oath and going, right? That's a hard thing to do. And this man didn't do it. Am I wrong, Mark? What's your opinion?
Oh boy, I mean, yeah, I understand that. I was never in the military, so I think it's impressive doing anything. But combat is a far different animal, and I don't like people pretending. You know, he had the whole thing about the weapons he carried into war, which he admitted it was a lie. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to question him about there. It's like every politician. You use it when it's to your advantage and you run away from it when you think you can get hurt by it.
You know what Donald Trump did? He did his bone spurs in his heel. But you know what he did? The bone spurs in his heel. You didn't want to serve. You didn't serve. You did like a lot of guys in that generation and you dodged it.
Yeah.
My dad didn't dodge it. You know, my dad went in the service because it was a way to order his life after he was 18 and left high school.
Yeah.
My
dad got drafted. Yeah. So.
Did your dad serve?
Yeah.
Or did he run to Canada?
No, he served. He served in Germany in the late 60s for 3 years.
So, which reminds me. I served, okay, he went to Italy. Walz and his battalion, right? Mm-hmm. In support of Operation Enduring Freedom. No. I looked at, that's very important, your expeditionary ribbons, right? The war on terror. If you were stationed in Italy,
you don't get one?
That wasn't part of Operation, that wasn't support for Operation Enduring Freedom. It wasn't. It matters to military people and family of military people. It should matter to everybody because if you're the heartbeat away guy and this is how you react, this isn't the guy I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But see, for people that don't know, they hear just what's said and they respond to that. So if the media
it's a beauty pageant.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying, but if nobody is fact checking and whomever is speaking is not being brutally honest, then all you have to walk away with is just.
I mean, he could have been a real shitty teacher too, but all we know is that he was a teacher. You know what I mean? Which is part of the beauty pageant. You know, he checks all these boxes, but how were you at those jobs? He was a governor of Minnesota. How were you at that job?
Right, and you suspended the Constitution for 1.5 years in Minnesota, right? Mm-hmm. You were late to the Floyd riots. It's obvious now.
But I saw them celebrating that he had a day named in Minnesota after Prince, and he signed it in purple ink.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Well, I know it is.
We all love Prince, right?
And yeah, we do, and it is cool. But I'm saying these kinds of things don't. We need to separate.
That's just kind of my point. It's all about the veneer of who's running, right? It's how they look.
Yeah.
And how they're
buff
perceived.
Glasses and purple ink. This is what we get.
Yeah, look at that. It's cool.
These problems are so deep.
Charlie, do you know how much we were in the store today? Do you know how much a box of cereal, what the price on the box of a cereal? It was $10 for a box of cereal.
You know, this for a pack of cigarettes and a 6-pack?
25.
Yeah, in there, between 20 and 25.
For cigarettes? cigarettes?
And a six-pack.
Cigarettes are 10 now.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't smoke, but I didn't. That's a lot of money. Everything is so expensive. Life is expensive. Life is expensive.
And you're right. Prices will never go down. Once prices are raised, they don't ever go down.
Right. So that's not a winner to like when Corinne Jean-Pierre is saying Harris was there every step of the way with Biden. That's not something you want to say. Right? Meaning
well,
you're fully involved with this.
I mean, that's for some odd reason. That's something she wants to say. She doesn't work for her election campaign, which I would think Kamala's election campaign would be like, shut the fuck up. I mean, they pretty much said that to Biden last week when he had a slip of the tongue about, oh, shoot, it's escaping me right now. But it's something that it's like, we're not dealing with that right now. Because it's, you have these two different entities. You have the executive branch in an election campaign, and they don't mesh. She's not going to be working for her.
And we know he's a shell, so let's just get rid of that, right?
Oh, I know.
Okay, so Ukraine's invading Russia. Mm-hmm. Who's in charge?
Great question.
Was it handed over to Harris?
No, she's running a campaign.
It's on autopilot. This is, and then you look
at on autopilot,
and then you look at like that's why I stopped watching. Here's a commercial that Slotkin's running on Mike Rogers, the former head of the Congressional Intel Committee, right? Deep State, spook, Okay, he went off to Florida and bought a mansion. He doesn't even live here. He went up to Florida and bought a mansion.
Pretty funny commercial. So funny that they filed a cease and desist against it.
Why did they? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up again, just because they believe the allegations are false.
Well, on the other hand,
I mean, meanwhile, it's already ran.
Slotkin never voted in a Michigan election until she moved back here in 2017. And she, jumping congressional districts, moved into a lobbyist condo, got elected, and then moved back out of the district to the family farm.
They're all the same.
And she's a deep state CIA. Thank you for Iraq and Iran. What are we getting?
Well, remember you talked too about part of their commercial where she was talking about the insurance. On one hand, she said that
her mom
had no insurance, and then she said she spent time wrestling with the insurance companies. So did she not have insurance, or was she wrestling with the insurance companies? But you talked about her mother's first husband and her second husband, both that had pretty well secure positions that probably had insurance.
Yeah, well, no, that's Whitmer's father and stepfather, and then Slotkin's father.
Slotkin's father, right?
Stepfather
Okay.
in that one, but exactly, just pandering, because the decisions they made have ruined us, and they want to pretend like they're part of the fallout, not the fuse.
But whose fault is it? Is it the candidate's fault for pandering, or is it the
electorate?
Exactly, for buying into it so much? I mean, I would think that if in fact your vote were so important, you'd demand more.
I don't blame the electorate though, because it's quite exhausting to keep up on all this stuff when you feel like you're being fed a bunch of lies. It's like, well, why am I going to waste my time with this?
Well, I'm not even going to blame the media. I'm going to blame the executives in the media, right? Because the rank and file, we do as we're told, right? We're not going to go there with, we're going to have Brian Brown, the attorney for Michael Jackson Bolanos, the man accused of murdering Samantha Wall. Like, we're told what's expected to be brought back to the newsroom, right? We know better. We're just not allowed to say it, Yeah. So now we all realize how important.
All you have to do there is look at local politics.
Oh God, right?
Yeah.
Not to get you started, but
I mean, local politics, like Detroit's ranked 149th out of 149 major American cities in livability, or Detroit and the state Whitmer and Duggan gave $500 million to Chrysler, who turns around and merges with Stellantis,
And
right,
lays off
for an East Side factory, but then the one in Warren is going to shut down, and 2,500 people are out on their ass.
shell game.
Shell game.
Yep, that's
And
what it is.
while ago, you brought him in. Former mayor and industrialist Dave Ming came in and goes, "This is bullshit. It's a shell game. We're never getting those jobs. We got swindled. The rich get richer and the poor get children, and we can't afford to feed them because cereal's $10. And speaking of gruel, update on the Joe Biden guardianship.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Are you bringing them in?
Breaking news.
Do.
request, our paperwork with the Superior Court Probate Division of the Circuit of Washington, D.C., our request for emergency guardianship of President Joe Biden has temporarily been rejected as we did not include a $45 check for the filing fee.
Oh, really?
Now, it doesn't say that on the website, and nobody picks up the phone at the probate court in D.C., but we have filed an immediate and emergency paperwork with the $45 check, so we would keep you updated on that. And when we come back, Brian Brown, prominent Detroit attorney, a word from our sponsors.
I'm Grace Karros, and I'm third generation of American Coney Island. People say Detroit's a comeback city. I say, where you been? We've been here for over 100 years. My family's been here on the same corner, serving our famous proprietary American Coney Island hot dog. So like always, we're keeping things fresh, updated, and new. We'd love to have you come downtown and visit us, but if you can't, you can always go to AmericanConeyIsland.com, order a Coney kit, get it delivered fresh right to your door.
Well, you know, when it rains, the power goes out. And when the power goes out, the internet goes out. When the internet goes out, I call my friend Matt and Bernie at XG Service Group. Look at Bernie here on his hands and knees, giving it everything he's got. Look at that man crack. So busy, he forgot to wear a belt. There's Matt right there getting the board together. That's 734-245-4100 if you need Matt and Bernie to come take care of your voice over internet, your security cameras, off-campus access control, Wi-Fi, and cameras for homes and business. They'll design it for you. You got restaurants, they do drive-through systems, railroad cameras for public safety, total wireless camera systems for your home and business. Yeah, that's right. Call XG Services at 734-245-4100. And time for the live reads. The politicians lie to you. The media lies to you. How do you know your investment statements aren't lying to you? Remember, you're not managing your wealth. That's some unseen guy working for a big bank, jockeying some unknown algorithm. But he's not making decisions based on what's best for you. He's making decisions on what's best for his bonus, gambling with your hard-earned dollars. You should know your money, man. That's why I work with financial specialist Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. He'll tailor a financial plan specifically for you, from annuities to retirement accounts to college savings. He'll keep you up to date and always just a phone call away. Let Luke Nowacki worry so you don't have to. Luke Nowacki, 248-663-4748. That's 248-663-4748. If you didn't get that, you can rewind this. And I would say 248-663-4748. Finally, are you an entrepreneur looking for a safe and socially responsible real estate investment?
Yes.
Consider contacting Archangel Senior Management. Senior living is one of the fastest growing markets in America, as we know from these horrible governor's COVID response. We know that. And Archangel offers small communal living for senior citizens in homes right in our own neighborhoods. It's the antithesis of the cold corporate nursing homes we've all now heard so much about. Archangel has formed partnerships with the PES School of Nursing and Majestic Residences, a home-based assisted living franchise system. This partnership provides authentic caregivers with the tools and training necessary to manage their own care homes, and Archangel investors in that real estate deal can feel secure in both their investment and their care teams. The care is genuine, the owners are local, and Archangel has Overwatch. If interested in this trailblazing opportunity, contact Archangel at 989-614-0416, 989-614-0416. Now, as promised, I think it's the final chapter. I'm not sure. The update on the Samantha Wall's murder case, which to me was one of the most bizarre in my nearly 30 years in journalism. Joining us once again is Brian Brown, fantastic lawyer. Nice to meet your mom, by the way. Met his mom at the sentencing of Michael Jackson Bolanos.
Oh, so your mom was there to support you?
Yeah, she was
That's
there.
good.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
a proud moment for her. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, she told me because you're a hell of a lawyer.
Appreciate that.
Really impressive.
Yeah.
And his mom was telling me that when he was a young man, maybe, an older boy, that he got in some trouble and he was going to get his spanking. And by the time She got home. He had drafted up a proposal, a plea deal, as it were. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Did you get the whooping?
Probably did.
Oh,
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Got the hanging judge.
I'm not sure. I've done that, I'm trying to talk my way out of, a lot of different things. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Now, in this one, first degree murder, your client, Michael Jackson Bolanos, was charged with in the 8-time stabbing of Samantha Wall.
That's correct.
Last month, I think it was, the jury found him not guilty of that. And they were hung on basically second degree murder, right? Felony murder,
which is first degree murder also, but it's felony degree first degree murder, which is different than first degree premeditated murder.
And home invasion.
But
you wisely went through your law books and you found United States versus Yeager?
Yes.
Which says, if you're, tell us what that means. If you're acquitted of first degree murder within that decision.
Right. Basically, if there is an acquittal of a particular charge and there's a hung jury on another charge which shares the same elements, then they cannot be retried on the charge that they were hung on.
That's really good. And so the judge dismissed that.
Reluctantly, yes.
Yes, which I found amusing because the Wayne County assistant prosecutors are grandstanding, because we kind of blew this case. They're grandstanding like they're going to take this all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
Well, but they have to, Charlie. I mean, you got to remember there's a lot of emotion around this crime, if you will. And you said the final chapter, not necessarily final chapter for you and your client, because there's still an unresolved case. And I'm sure her family wants some type of closure. So, but yeah.
Well, they didn't get him on the home invasion. Okay. So they had to throw that out because
they already argued that under issue preclusion. So double jeopardy has another prong to it, which is issue preclusion, which is a little bit different than double jeopardy by itself. So basically, if they argued it in trial, they can't argue it again. So they already argued that he tried to do a home invasion. The predicate crime under that home invasion was assault.
They were arguing that he broke into the house because his motivation was he wanted to hurt her.
Yes.
That's why he went into the house, not to rob her.
Correct.
Which was dumb.
Very dumb.
And
we thought about that too at when they was asking for those jury instructions, me and my co-counsel, and I'm like, okay, that's going to kind of maybe come back to haunt them under that theory that he went into the house to do the assault opposed to doing the larceny. So they did.
Do you think they just underestimated you?
Possibly. I think so. I think they probably thought they had it in the bag. And I don't think they really saw the evidence the way it should have been viewed. I think they just say, oh, we just have 2 specks of blood on his coat, so he must have done it. He was in the area. He's a thief. He's a liar. The jury's going to believe that.
And they didn't. So let me ask you, before we get to ultimately what happens to Michael Jackson Bolanos, and what a name, Michael Jackson, because he was moonwalking through Detroit trying to bust into cars. It ended up costing him. But afterwards, the jury tried. They tried, hung jury. I don't know why they didn't hold him over. They let him go for it was sort of the Trump deal. I never seen that either. What did the jury vote in terms of guilty or not guilty on murder, home invasion? You got to talk to the jury afterwards.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know my co-counsel, she wrote it down. I know the majority was not guilty. As far as the exact numbers, I can't recall, because they had a poster board that they basically had different numbers on from different days in respect to different charges. So
was it 6-6?
I believe one was maybe 9, like 8-5. 8-4, I'm sorry. Or maybe 9-3, if I'm not mistaken. I think that might have been that on the felony murder. I think it was maybe closer on the home invasion. I think the home invasion might have been, and don't quote me on this, maybe 7-5. But to my understanding, it was, in my remembering, it was a majority of not guilty.
The reason I ask is because, so I'm not crazy. I mean, if you stand back and you take a look at what the prosecution offered, it wasn't, they blew this case.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't. So what is your client was convicted of lying to police, which I've been covering crime a long time. I I knew, like, if you lie to a federal agent.
I had a police officer say, well, if that's the case, everybody would be in jail.
Everybody, yes.
So-
Everybody lies to the police. Just denying culpability. Who doesn't go in there and just deny culpability? I don't think that's enough to, first of all, convict them or even charge them, because like I've been doing it for a while too, and I've never seen somebody just get charged with lying to the police. Now it's different if you file a false police report and you make the police go on all these different errands and expend a whole bunch of resources in order to investigate your lies. Like if you say, hey, I got carjacked, but you parked your car, down the street or something like that. So they went on this long, quest to try to find who carjacked you to find out that you were lying. Yeah, you're gonna get charged. Or if you're on the stand and you commit perjury, that's a little different. But just going inside the police station and they say, hey, we think you did this. And you said, no, I did not do that. That should not be enough, because that's basically just exerting your innocence. You got a right to be proven guilty. You got a right to be innocent to proven guilty.
Well, he admitted he did.
Yeah, he admitted.
And so what did the judge what did the judge sentence him to? Like he's already done about 9 months in jail. So is it time served?
It's not going to be. I mean, unfortunately, it should have been time served. That was the recommendation from the Michigan Department of Corrections, was to be time served and him to serve probation. But the judge went beyond that, and she sentenced him to a minimum of 18 months to 15 years.
This has been a precedent-setting case in so many ways. I mean, we think about the boyfriend that was allowed to testify with immunity, and
after calling the police,
the police and saying that he did it, and the issue surrounding lying to the police, and now this seems excessive. Is he still detained?
Yes, he's still detained, and I would agree. It definitely sounds and appears and is excessive. I've never seen any type of sentence even remotely close to that. Unfortunately, yes, he is still detained. They're going to be transferring him over soon to the Michigan Department of Corrections, where they'll classify him and give him an earliest release date.
So you could appeal it, but by the time this thing gets to the appellate court and they take a look at it, it's possible. It would be 22 months.
It's possible that during appeal, which appeal is still going to go through, but it's possible that by the time a court does hear that appeal and makes a ruling on that appeal, he could very well be at home. Okay. We're hoping he's at home as soon as possible.
So is it when the interest kind of dies down and the dust settles and maybe he's likely to get out? I mean, because this was...
Can I answer that? No.
Sure, Attorney Langton.
I'll answer it.
LeDuff.
I'll answer it, because he can't. Because the truth of the matter is there's no fucking way they're letting him out in 22 months, right?
Why?
Because the family's engaged, she was prominent, and the powers that be are going to try to keep this guy in for 5 years. Because what I saw in that courtroom was a case that was an absolute shit pile from the prosecution. It was terrible. On one half, looking at, after his client, what he was doing that night, that side of the police did a fantastic job. But looking at what the boyfriend was doing that night, they dropped the ball. So the family doesn't get justice. Samantha doesn't get justice. His guy gets a maximum 15 years for lying to police. I've never even heard of it. Yeah. And you think they're going to let him out in 22? The family won't stand for it. Am I wrong?
The family definitely doesn't want him to be released. The family would like him to spend the rest of his life in jail. I think that's clear. I don't believe that they saw, I think they had tunnel vision. They didn't see the evidence for what it was. I guess they just believed just because the prosecutor told them that the prosecutor felt that it was my guy who did it, then therefore it must be so. And they just didn't really even want to hear any evidence to the contrary. Now, as far as him being released, I would hope that the Michigan Department of Corrections Parole Board would not try to use acquitted conduct in order to try to have him remain, because he was acquitted of that. So they can't really legally, and in good conscience, morally, use the fact that he beat those cases against him in trying to make him remain, especially for a low level, non-violent offense.
Well, the judge, in my opinion, bailed out the system that collapsed here, right? Like, could you imagine he's let go that day? Like, justice is not equal.
Right.
Let's
It's
just
not.
face it's not.
It's not
And,
blind either.
imagine letting him out. So that wasn't going to happen. So I'm listening to the judge say, well, looking at your past record for card thievery and what you were doing that night trying to get into cars, it was fascinating to me. She's taking this into account, but the prosecution never charged your guy for breaking into cars. Now, had they done that and he admitted it, well, he is the habitual, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a habitual, and you're right. They did not charge him. They could have charged him, but they chose not to charge him. And I believe the only reason why they charged him with lying to the police was in an attempt to assassinate his character. So when he does go to trial, they can say, hey, this guy is a liar. He's a thief. Just like in the closing, the prosecutor counted how many times he lied. This is lie number 35. This is lie number 36. Yeah, he admitted he lied. So they basically just wanted to just, assassinate his character. So if he's a liar, he's a thief, he must be a murderer. And I think they also did it in a way to confuse the jury somewhat, because the jury may thought that, and some people may still think that he was convicted of lying about what happened to Samantha Wall. Just to be clear, they charged him with lying to the police involving an investigation about larcenies from vehicles. So they asked him, were you doing these larcenies from vehicles?
That he wasn't charged with.
Yeah, and he wasn't charged with it, absolutely. So saying all of that, they just did that, like I said, just to, throw mud on his name.
Was he ever, and I know this may be a loaded question, but how was he, I mean, was he ever afraid? Did he feel confident in his innocence, throughout this? He never wanted to just kind of say, sometimes people that aren't guilty are willing to try to take a plea deal and they just go along. Was he comfortable and confident in his innocence?
Oh, he was very confident. He was 100% confident in his innocence. And I was also. Mm-hmm. Now, at times, he got a little nervous, just because you're putting your faith into the hands of this system from which we know is not always fair, and not even half the times fair sometimes. And you're putting your faith into the hands of strangers who don't know you, who looking at you and they be like, okay, you look a particular way. Mm-hmm. You were out there doing bad things. As far as stealing, you lied to the police. So therefore, some people may think that, that makes you a murderer if you did A, B, and C.
Right.
I still say, I'm just going to be honest, it's highly probable in my mind that your client saw the door open, went in there, saw all the blood, turned right around because the sensor went on and off, saw her, touched her, saw she was dead, and got the hell out. You can't. Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Absolutely not, because I'm going to tell you why that is.
But they didn't. They couldn't prove that. So what's going on here is, well, let me give you 2 to 15, right? Because you shouldn't have been out there, and it's.
But they didn't charge him with doing what he was out there doing.
He did charge him, but it was dismissed.
Saying for the vehicle.
No, but what I'm saying is they charged him from going in the apartment, and the jury's like, you don't have it.
Because he couldn't have went into the apartment. First of all, even if your theory that he saw the body outside,
he saw the door open, went in, saw the blood, went, holy shit, turns, goes out, then sees the body, goes, holy shit, then touches it, goes, holy shit.
Okay, even in that order, it doesn't make sense, because if he would have went inside to trigger the motion detector is all the way in the back of her apartment. So he would have to walk all through this blood, shoe prints through this blood. Those would have been visible. He would have had to walk through pools of blood in order to get to the
He could have gone through the kitchen, stayed against the wall, went through the kitchen, then looked in there and went, oh my God.
But there was blood by the door, though. So there was blood right by the front door. So he would have to step in that blood.
So when you didn't see or couldn't see the body from going into the door? Where was the body positioned?
The body was 2 apartments down. But if you're standing, outside. But if you're standing like by her door, you might not be able to see her because there was some shrubbery.
Yeah, there's a hedgerow about chest high, so you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Yes.
Oh, it's okay. So again,
He never went into, just to be clear, he never ever stepped foot. The only time he's ever saw the inside of her apartment is when I showed him pictures from the discovery. That's the only time he's ever got
just
of it.
Just at the time he's messing around with cars in her parking lot, her motion detector goes off. Just when he's there, instantly, and goes off. So is that a night owl? Was that a vampire bat?
That was her. That was her leaving. And it's like, this guy, he's avoiding contact all night. You see him hiding in the shadows from people walking outside. He's running from noises. Why would he ever walk into a lit, the light was on. Why would you ever walk into a lit apartment in Detroit? You don't know who's in there. Somebody could be in there having a gun party, cleaning their guns. You're not going to just walk into an apartment when you don't know who's in there at night. And you've not been doing that at all. No footage of him even looking in an apartment.
The fact is there isn't evidence, and you have to draw conclusions. And again, this thing fascinated me. And even if I believe that,
that's
right?
Even
if I believe what I think, I got to look at what you gave me.
Right.
But
I'll tell you this too. I've had my alarm sensors triggered by a spider. I mean, that's also, I know that seems crazy, but depending on how sensitive it is, if there's a bug or a spider that crawls across that sensor, it can trigger that sensor.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, stranger
I'm saying
things
that's
have happened.
But I mean, it's happened.
Nobody's been convicted of Samantha Wall's murder.
Mm-hmm.
I guess nobody probably will. It's too late to go after Hirschman. I doubt they will. Any evidence that he had, even though they should reopen this case, they very well should.
Could they?
They could. Now, will they?
They
That's
won't,
another
yeah,
question.
right.
Because any evidence that they would have had is long gone. Whatever he was wearing that day, they should have went to the synagogue, extracted video, should have talked to witnesses there. They didn't do that. Any video at the synagogue, that's long gone. Any witnesses they could talk to, they don't remember what he was wearing. And if he had the clothes, he disposed of it. He could have burnt it in his fire pit, which nobody took pictures of, nobody examined, didn't examine his bike. I mean,
now to be clear, we're not accusing him.
Not accusing him.
But you're just saying, you're saying examine.
He accused himself.
Right.
Let me say this for obvious reasons. In no way are we accusing anybody of murder. Just these are really odd and interesting and to me sort of historic elements, right? You're calling the police and you.
That
I may have inadvertently done it. I don't remember. It just
seems
video.
odd to overlook.
Please, you have to allow me to do this.
I am going.
Video wasn't tracked. There's enough question. Okay, so we're not accusing anybody.
No,
even though that guy in that photograph looks very, very.
But my thing is,
similar.
But my thing is that why not? If you're really looking to find an answer, and maybe he's not the answer, but why wouldn't they want to examine every possible element of the case that could lead them to the guilty party? That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I would agree. They did a very, very thorough investigation when it came to my client, as far as tracking him down, sending his clothes in, his knives in for every test and analysis imaginable. But for Mr. Hirschman, they did not. And that's like, I don't know how you wouldn't be able to, or why you wouldn't blow up the picture of this person running away and then examine it and possibly put it next to, why would me and my co-counsel have to do this? Why would, they not do this? That's elementary police work.
And that's why you're good. I couldn't believe it. I was like, look what he came up with. Like, you didn't treat your client like a bag of clothes.
Nah.
Like, it was really thorough. So, your name of your law firm?
Be Legal.
Be Legal?
Yeah.
Want to give the number?
313-671-4139.
It's Brian Brown. I know you've been around a while, but the circumstances is not the right word, but new star of the legal system here in greater metropolitan area for real. Now, just real quick before we go, what was the doctor, the surgeon?
Devin Hoover.
What was his name, dude?
Devin Hoover.
Yeah, here, I got it here. Detroit neurosurgeon Devin Hoover, who was found murdered in his attic, wrapped in a wrapped in a carpet with one sock on and naked. Turns out his lover for hire has been charged. The guy was going around the world with his credit card, took his watches, they allege. But this was a year ago. Mm-hmm. And the prosecutor in this case took her time, right?
Yes.
So you in the legal world, like, I mean, you're hearing it. This is what you expect, right? If you don't have it all, you wait and you continue on.
That's correct. You collect evidence and you talk to witnesses and you make sure that before you go forward with the charges that in your mind you can prove these charges, that they point to the person that you are charging. So obviously at the time, well, I'm not gonna say obviously, but apparently at the time that he was originally questioned, they didn't have all the evidence they have now as far as maybe surveillance, different witnesses, text messages. You know, some of those things take a while to, gather, with search warrants, and then you have to sift through them. My understanding, they had a mountain of evidence as far as surveillance, text messages, so many different phones that were seized. So you got to go through all of these different phones, terabytes worth of evidence, and thoroughly sift through those and analyze it before you go forward.
This guy there was no FBI.
It might have been. I mean, a case like this, I believe, from my understanding, that there was a multi-state investigation from at least 4 different states. So if I had to assume it's 4 different states involved, I'm sure the FBI was involved. Because I've had multiple cases where the FBI will assist Wayne County as far as phone extractions and or phone mapping.
Well, who killed Tamara Green, Strawberry Green? Don't get any task force like this.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on, the case, who the individual is, who's accused of committing the crime, when it happens, where it happens, so a lot of variables go into
Brian.
it.
He got to show up to the courthouse. Well, has what's this cat's name? Desmond Burks, has he called you?
No, he hasn't called me. No, I haven't heard, only thing I've heard from the case is, basically from the news. So I haven't heard anything firsthand.
It was a fascinating case. It was interesting to watch you, and, good luck in future endeavors.
Appreciate it.
Brian Brown.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, his guy's doing 2 to 15. I knew it too. I knew it. I told my wife they're gonna hit him with that.
Oh, everybody knew. They back in my mind, I kind of suspected. I was hoping that she was going to go with the recommendation of probation, but I guess she just couldn't help herself.
And there's a moral to this story. When the cops pick you up, ask for a lawyer, and then shut the fuck up.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, till next week.
We'll watch.
Remember to vote. Vote off it. See you later.